Imagine this. 7 young hikers set out into the Rocky Mountains on a bright summer morning in 1995. Their backpacks were loaded, their spirits high, but none of them ever came back. No bodies, no gear, no answers, only silence in the Colorado peaks. For 22 years, their families left flowers at trailheads hoping for something, anything. But the case stayed cold, swallowed by mountain winds and shifting snow. Search parties found nothing. Investigators gave up, and the story faded into rumor, until one day in 2017, when a battered camera was discovered deep inside a collapsed mine shaft. Its film, miraculously preserved, was developed by forensic experts. What appeared on those photographs stunned everyone. 7 faces in the dark, shadows behind them, a hand reaching where no hand should have been. If this happened to people you loved, your friends, your family, would you believe the photos were real? Or would you convince yourself the mountains swallowed them whole? Where are you watching from tonight? Comment your country below. And if you believe some stories can survive in photographs long after the people are gone, hit subscribe, because this one will take you places you won't forget. You picture yourself standing at the base of the Colorado Rockies in June of 1995. The air is sharp, clean, filled with pine and the distant rush of mountain streams. 7 young hikers adjust their backpacks beside you, their laughter echoing through the canyon walls. They don't know it, but they're about to step into a story that will never let them go. Their names don't matter yet, because to you they're just faces, smiling, sunburned, full of the kind of restless hope only the young carry. A camera swings from the shoulder of one boy, a bulky 90s film camera, its strap frayed at the edges. He lifts it, snaps a picture, and captures what no one realizes will be some of the last images ever taken of them alive. But if photographs can survive 22 years buried in stone and dust, what else survived with them? The group sets out early, boots crunching gravel, following a trail that twists up into shadow. Their parents wave from the parking lot, promises of a quick weekend trip exchanged for hurried hugs. Nobody thinks to memorize what they're wearing. Nobody imagines this might be the last time they'll see them. The Rockies swallow sound quickly. The higher you climb, the less the world behind you matters. By midday, the hikers are already far from cell coverage, though in 1995 that hardly mattered. They joke about the weight of their packs, take turns carrying the camera, and argue about which ridgeline will give them the best view. And you? You're right there with them, feeling the pull of altitude in your lungs, the exhilaration of being young and free. But beneath that exhilaration, something else lingers, a silence that creeps in when the wind dies, a feeling that the mountains are not empty at all. By nightfall, they reach a clearing. They pitch their tents, light a fire, roast marshmallows bought from a gas station hours earlier. Someone strums a guitar. Another opens a cheap journal and writes, promising to record every step of the trip. The camera flashes. More faces, more laughter, more evidence they existed. But when investigators returned years later, none of these things remained. No tents, no backpacks, not even ashes from the fire. It was as though the mountain had swallowed every trace. Morning comes. The hikers pack quickly, eager to push deeper. They're chasing a ghost town said to lie in a high valley, where an old silver mine collapsed decades earlier. Maps mark it only faintly, an X on yellowed paper. Locals say the shafts are cursed, that miners who went in never came back. But to young hikers, curses are stories, not warnings. The trail grows rougher. Snow still lingers in shaded gullies, crisp under boots. The group keeps snapping photos, trees, peaks, each other. One shot, later found on the developed film, shows them resting near a rusted signpost. Words almost erased but still legible. Black Hollow Mine. Keep out. You can almost hear the photographer laughing as he frames the shot. Danger makes the young bold. They reach the mine entrance by afternoon. A gaping black mouth yawns in the hillside, its timbers rotted, its edges crumbling. Cold air exhales from within, carrying the scent of earth and iron. They dare each other to go inside. And here's where the photographs grow strange. The first few frames show beams of light slicing into darkness, flash illuminating dripping stone. Then the hikers themselves, faces flushed with adrenaline, crouching in narrow tunnels. And then the 7th photo shows something no one can explain. A blurred shape behind them. Too tall to be one of the 7. Too close to the camera to be dust or shadow. A hand. Long, pale, fingers crooked, stretching into the frame as if reaching for the boy with the camera. If you found this photo 2 decades later, Would you believe it? Or would you tell yourself it was nothing but a trick of the light? The journal stops here too. The handwriting grows jagged, rushed. Something is following us. And then nothing. Investigators would later note that the mine shaft collapsed sometime in late June, likely after heavy rain. No bodies were ever recovered. No gear, no sign of struggle, just silence, stone, and darkness. For 22 years, families came to this trailhead. They left flowers, notes, photographs of the smiling faces now frozen in time. Hikers avoided the Black Hollow mine, some swearing they heard voices echoing from within. Others claimed to see light flickering deep in the sealed shaft. Then in 2017, a team of surveyors clearing rock for a new road unearthed something extraordinary. A battered camera wedged in rubble, film still intact inside. Against all odds, the images developed, and with them, the story of the 7 hikers came back to life. Because the last frame on the roll doesn't show 7 smiling hikers at all. It shows 6, and behind them in the dark, a figure no one has ever identified. You imagine the year is 2017, and the world has almost forgotten about the 7 hikers who vanished in 1995. The mountains haven't. They never forget. The Colorado Rockies stand tall, indifferent to memory, their ridges carved by wind and time. Search parties once combed these slopes. Mothers once screamed into these valleys, but all of that faded. Now only whispers remain, until a road crew's backhoe strikes something buried in the rubble of a collapsed mine shaft. At first, it looks like nothing, just metal and dust. A worker wipes it clean and realizes it's a camera. Bulky, heavy, a model nobody carries anymore, its leather strap torn, its lens cracked, and inside, against all odds, a roll of film. The casing dented but intact. The crew chief hands it over to county police, who treat it like just another odd artifact. But one detective, older now, remembers the hikers. He remembers the families standing at the trailhead with flowers begging for answers, and he insists the film be developed. When the photos emerge in a dimly lit forensic lab, silence fills the room. The first frames are harmless enough. A group of friends smiling at the trailhead, a shot of pine trees stretching endlessly upward, sunlight spilling across snow. You almost smile, seeing their laughter preserved. For a moment, it feels like they never vanished. Then the mood shifts. The next set of frames shows the mine entrance. Black Hollow, its warning sign still visible. The hikers pose grinning, defiant. One of them flashes a peace sign. Another points dramatically at the collapsed beams. They look alive, vibrant. You can almost hear the jokes behind their smiles. But then the camera follows them inside. The flash bursts against dripping stone, illuminating narrow tunnels. Shadows stretch too long, bending in unnatural ways. In one shot, a girl ducks her head, the beam of a flashlight cutting across her face. Behind her, darkness presses in, solid and suffocating. Another frame captures a boy crouching near the wall, chalking an arrow onto stone to mark their path. His hand trembles, the line jagged, and then the 7th photo, the one that chills everyone in the lab. 6 hikers clustered together, their faces tense, their eyes wide, and behind them a figure, tall, too tall, its head brushing the tunnel ceiling, its hand reaching forward, long and pale, fingers splayed as though trying to touch the boy holding the camera. The flash caught its outline, but not its face. That space is nothing but shadow, a void that swallows the light. Investigators lean closer, arguing over possibilities. Light bleed, a smear on the negative, a trick of motion, but the proportions are wrong. Too human to dismiss, too inhuman to accept. The photo is logged as unidentified anomaly, but in the hallways outside, officers whisper. The final frames deepen the mystery. The hikers' expressions shift from laughter to unease. Their bodies huddle closer in each successive photo. One frame shows them pointing down a tunnel as though they've heard something. Another shows them turning suddenly, eyes wide, as if someone approached from behind. And then the last frame. Only 6 hikers remain in the photo. One is missing. The others stare directly into the lens, their faces pale, as though silently begging whoever develops the film decades later to understand what happened. Their mouths are slightly open as if caught mid-scream, and in the blurred corner, just at the edge of the flash, is that pale hand again. The lab grows cold, though the air conditioning hasn't shifted. Officers mutter. The detective who ordered the film's development leans heavily on the counter. He remembers the names. He remembers the parents who never stopped waiting. And now he wonders how he will tell them that the camera has returned without their children. Word spreads quickly. Families are called. Mothers clutch framed photos of children who never came home. Fathers sit in silence, knuckles white against the arms of their chairs. Some weep when shown the developed prints. Others refuse to look, saying it would be like losing them all over again. One woman faints when she sees her son in the final frame, his mouth open in terror. And yet, despite the horror, the camera is a gift. Proof they existed until the end. Proof they were not swallowed silently by nature. Proof of something else. Something that followed them. The case is reopened. Detectives dust off old files, comb through witness statements, maps, weather reports. They hike to the mine shaft, though it has long since collapsed. The air around it is heavy still, as though the mountain itself is guarding secrets. They lower cameras into cracks, but nothing moves in the shadows. The walls groan faintly as though remembering. Experts analyze the photos. Some say the figure is an illusion caused by water vapor reflecting the flash. Others point out that the shadow extends in ways vapor cannot. Anthropologists are brought in, whispering about folklore. The Rockies have stories older than any settlement. Spirits of miners, mountain watchers, guardians of places meant to remain closed. But those explanations never make it into official reports. Instead, the receipts begin. Yes, receipts. Weeks after the photos surface, one of the families receives an envelope in their mailbox. Inside is a gas station receipt dated June 1995. The name signed at the bottom is their daughter's, but she vanished 22 years earlier. The paper is brittle, yellowed, but authentic. The gas station listed still exists. Clerks dig through what records remain, but nothing matches. Still, the receipt's signature is clear. Her handwriting. Investigators compare it against school assignments preserved in dusty boxes. The loops, the curves, they match perfectly. How does a girl sign a receipt decades after she vanished? Other families soon receive similar envelopes. Motel slips, diner tabs, each dated June 1995, each signed by a missing hiker. The paper trails extend miles beyond the mine, as though the hikers walked out into the world again, leaving behind proof of their presence. But no one saw them. No cameras captured them. No witnesses stepped forward. Just receipts, police grow frantic, forensic labs test the paper. Some slips show signs of artificial aging, edges browned by heat, ink faded unnaturally. Others seem untouched, fresh as the day they were printed. The contradiction drives investigators mad. And the families? They don't know whether to hope or despair, because if the receipts are real, maybe their children survived the fire, the collapse, the darkness. But if they are forged, it means someone wanted to keep the story alive, to remind the world of the missing, or worse, to prove control. The detective lies awake at night, the photos spread across his kitchen table. He stares at the pale hand reaching from the dark, at the hiker's wide eyes in the final frame. He thinks of the receipts, the signatures that should not exist, and he wonders whether the true author of this story is not the mountains, not folklore, not fate, but someone human. Someone who collects names and rewrites their endings. Outside his window, the Colorado wind howls. It sounds almost like laughter, and the next morning another envelope arrives. Inside is a photo, not from the recovered camera but taken recently, a modern digital print. It shows the detective himself, standing at the mine entrance the day before, his back to the shaft. And in the shadow behind him, just at the edge of light, stands a figure in a cap. You think about what it means to hold a receipt in your hand, a slip of paper, flimsy, disposable, meant to prove something so ordinary it hardly deserves memory. A meal paid for, gasoline pumped, a motel bed for one night's rest. But in this case, the receipts don't just record transactions, they rewrite reality. The first one arrives in a plain white envelope, no return address, no postmark. Inside, a single slip from a gas station dated June 24, 1995, the exact weekend the 7 hikers vanished. At the bottom, a name appears, Samantha Reed. She was one of the hikers. Her parents recognized the handwriting immediately. The loops, the pressure of the pen, the way the R curls like a hook. It's her. It's impossible. The Reeds bring it to police, trembling, half hoping this is proof their daughter somehow survived, half terrified it means she was trapped somewhere all along. The detectives scan it under UV light, test the fibers, analyze the ink. Nothing suggests forgery, except for one detail. The station where the receipt was supposedly printed burned down in 2001. All original logs were destroyed. No backup exists. The receipt is both undeniable and unverifiable. Within weeks, more envelopes arrive. One family finds a diner slip. Another, a motel registration card, each dated June 1995, each bearing the name of a hiker, all in their handwriting, and all arriving 22 years too late. The Wilsons, who lost their son Marcus, opened their envelope in silence. The paper is a hotel check-in slip from a roadside lodge hundreds of miles from the Rockies. Signed in Marcus's slanted scrawl. His parents collapse to the floor, clutching the paper like it's flesh and bone. Police are baffled. Forensics again test everything: the paper stock, the ink composition, the wear along the edges. Some receipts look artificially aged, their edges scorched by heat. Others look pristine, as if printed yesterday. No pattern emerges. The slips are authentic yet impossible, physical yet phantom. Journalists catch wind of the story, and soon the case explodes online. Headlines scream, "Receipts from the dead?" Colorado hikers signed slips years after vanishing. Forums debate whether it's a cruel hoax or evidence of survival. Conspiracy theorists argue it's a government cover-up, proof the hikers were taken into witness protection. Others whisper about experiments, secret programs, a hand behind the curtain that needs the paper trail more than the bodies. But there's something stranger. Investigators realize the receipts don't just track where the hikers could have gone. They form a pattern. Each slip is from a location along a single stretch of highway. A corridor that cuts south through Colorado, linking forgotten towns and shuttered motels. A road where other people vanished before and after 1995. The detective spreads them across his kitchen table at night. The slips form a line, like breadcrumbs scattered across decades. He sees names that never made the news. A salesman in 1989, a mother and child in 1993, a college student in 1996. Each vanished along the same corridor. Each had receipts surface later, signed in their handwriting. It's not just the hikers. It never was. He remembers a phrase scrawled in one of the recovered journals from the mine. Something is following us. Maybe it wasn't a superstition. Maybe it wasn't a ghost. Maybe it was something organized, patient, deliberate. One night, a new envelope arrives, not at a family's home, but at the detective's office. Inside is a motel slip dated June 1995. Signed, Detective Mason Whitfield. His own name. His own handwriting. But he wasn't even in Colorado that year. His blood runs cold. Someone is folding him into the story. He doesn't tell his colleagues at first. He hides the receipt in his drawer, locking it with shaking hands. But paranoia seeps in. Everywhere he goes, he feels watched. Cars idling near his apartment. Faces at gas stations lingering a second too long. And always, the memory of the figure in the cap that appeared in the photo slipped under his door. The families begin to splinter under the weight of the receipts. Some cling to hope, believing their children survived and lived anonymous lives on the highway. Others see the slips as cruel manipulation. The Reeds stop speaking to neighbors, convinced someone is watching them, feeding them breadcrumbs. The Wilsons refuse interviews, clutching Marcus's receipt in silence as though it might dissolve if anyone else touches it. And then something even more disturbing happens. A journalist receives an envelope containing not a receipt but a photograph, a modern print. It shows one of the hikers, Samantha, standing at a gas pump. The timestamp in the corner reads 2004, nearly a decade after she vanished. Experts scrutinize the photo. Some say it's doctored. Others argue it's genuine. The grain matches early 2000s film stock. The gas station in the background still exists, though remodeled. When detectives show the photo to Samantha's mother, she faints. Because the girl in the image isn't just Samantha, it's Samantha wearing the same jacket she had the day she vanished. The jacket that never turned up in searches. The detective drives to the gas station, desperate for answers. He asks old employees, digs through faded archives, hunts for anything that proves or disproves the photo. He finds nothing. No witnesses. No records, just another ghost layered into paper and ink. And then he starts receiving phone calls. A man's voice, calm and flat, never hurried. The same tone families described when mysterious calls told them to stop asking questions decades earlier. Stop chasing the paper, the voice says. The paper will chase you. The detective tries to trace the calls, but they vanish into static. Nights grow restless. He dreams of receipts fluttering through the air like snow. Each slip bearing a name he knows, a signature he recognizes. He wakes with the sound of rustling paper in his ears, the taste of iron on his tongue. Finally, he tells his partner about the receipt with his own name. She stares at it in silence, then slides it into an evidence sleeve. "This means they've marked you," she says. "Marked me for what?" Her eyes shift to the wall where the hikers' photos hang. For the same thing that marked them. That night, he drives the highway alone, receipts spread across the passenger seat. He traces the line of dots on the map, the corridor where the hikers and others vanished. At mile marker 117, he sees headlights in his rearview mirror. A car follows too close, too steady. He pulls off at a rest stop. The car pulls off too. He gets out, heart pounding, hand on his gun. The other car door opens. A man steps out, thin, tall, a baseball cap shadowing his face. He doesn't speak. Doesn't move. Just stands in the glow of the streetlight watching. The detective calls out, voice shaking, "Who are you?" The man tilts his head, almost amused. Then he raises his hand. Between his fingers, a slip of paper flutters. The detective steps closer, every nerve screaming. He snatches the receipt, eyes darting across the ink. It's dated tomorrow, and at the bottom, his own signature. You imagine yourself behind the wheel of a dusty sedan, headlights cutting through the endless dark of rural Colorado. The map sprawled across your lap is dotted with names, receipts, motel slips, diner tabs, all forming a line down Highway 285, the corridor where vanishings stretch back decades. It's not just about 7 hikers anymore. It never was. The road is quiet now, almost too quiet. Gas stations are shuttered, their neon signs flickering with broken tubes. Motels lean into the wind, roofs sagging, paint peeling like old skin. Each stop along this highway is a scar, and each scar holds a name. The 7 hikers are only one chapter in a story written long before they arrived. The detective drives this road again and again, every mile marker etched into his mind. He stops at diners closed since the 90s, where dust covers jukeboxes and chairs still sit crooked around tables. He presses his face to motel windows, seeing only shadows and mold. And every time he feels eyes on him, not people, not exactly, but presence. The corridor has patterns. 1989, a salesman named Holloway vanished. His car was found abandoned, but a receipt later surfaced with his name signed neatly at the bottom. 1993, a mother and her child disappeared after stopping for gas near Marble Falls. Years later, a motel registration card appeared with her handwriting. 1996, a college student last seen hitchhiking linked by a diner slip no one could explain. Then 1995, the hikers. 4 disappearances. 4 sets of receipts, all spread along this highway like breadcrumbs. The detective pins them on his wall, the slips fluttering under the air vent like fragile wings. They form a map, a circuit. Every dot along the corridor connects to another. Not random, not coincidence, deliberate, and then he sees something worse. Some receipts don't belong to missing people at all. They belong to witnesses, people who saw too much, heard too much. A housekeeper at a motel, a traveling salesman in the wrong place at the wrong time, each silenced with paper proof they were elsewhere, locked into the story by ink and signature. The corridor isn't just where people vanish. It's where reality bends. One evening, the detective stops at an abandoned motel halfway down the highway. Locals call it the Hillcrest, but its sign has long since rotted, letters hanging loose. Weeds split the asphalt. Room doors swing open in the wind. He steps inside, flashlight beam catching torn wallpaper and cigarette burns and carpet. The air smells of mildew and faint gasoline. He moves toward the office. Behind the desk sits a rusted filing cabinet. He yanks it open. Inside are envelopes, brittle with age. He pulls one free and opens it with trembling hands. Receipts, dozens of them. Each from different years. Each with different names. Some he recognizes from his wall. Others are strangers. But they all share one thing. Dates of disappearances. His chest tightens. This isn't just evidence. This is an archive. Someone has been keeping records, feeding trails into the world when they choose. He hears a creak outside, freezes, flashlight beam trembling. Slowly, he steps back toward the door. The air is heavy still, watchful. Then he sees it on the far wall, scratched deep into plaster with something sharp. Words, "We didn't leave. He wrote us out." The detective staggers back, heart hammering. For years, people believed the mountain swallowed families whole. But what if it wasn't the mountain at all? What if someone was writing them out of reality one slip at a time? When he emerges into the parking lot, a car is waiting. Engine idling. Headlights glaring. The silhouette of a man sits behind the wheel, cap pulled low. The detective freezes. The driver doesn't move. Then slowly the passenger window lowers. A slip of paper flutters out, carried by the wind to the detective's feet. He bends down, hand shaking, and reads the date. Tomorrow. And the name at the bottom is his partner's, signed in her handwriting. Back at the station, he slams the paper down in front of her. She stares, face pale, eyes wide. "That's my name," she whispers. She denies ever writing it, but the signature is hers. Every loop, every curve. He tells her what he saw, the man in the car, the wall with the message. Her hands tremble. "They're pulling me in now." The detective doesn't sleep. He drives the corridor again at dawn, eyes scanning every mile. He feels it in his bones now. This isn't about accidents, curses, or bad luck. It's about control. Whoever leaves the receipts controls the story. Whoever controls the story decides who stays and who vanishes. And you wonder, if reality itself can be rewritten on paper, what chance does memory have? He pulls into a rest stop, the same one where he saw the man before. The pavement is cracked, the bathroom doors chained shut. But something new waits on the bench near the vending machines. Another envelope. Inside, a single photograph. It's black and white, grainy. It shows the 7 hikers, but not at the mine. They're standing in front of a motel. Their eyes are wide, their smiles wrong, strained. And behind them, a shadowed figure in a cap stands just out of focus. On the back of the photo, in faded ink, 5 words are scrawled. The corridor keeps them here. The detective clutches the photo, scanning the empty rest stop. He feels it before he sees it, eyes watching, presence heavy. He spins, flashlight beam slicing into the dark trees. Branches sway, but nothing moves. Nothing human, and then he hears it. Paper rustling. Not from the trees, not from the wind, but from the ground at his feet. Dozens of receipts scattered across the asphalt, edges curling, ink bleeding in the dew. Names he knows. Dates he remembers. Each one whispering a story that should not exist. He bends down, heart thundering, and sees the newest slip lying at the center of the pile. The ink still wet. His own name again. But this time the date isn't tomorrow, it's tonight. You imagine the silence of the corridor at night. Not the kind of silence that comforts, but the kind that listens. Every tree seems to lean closer. Every gust of wind sounds like paper turning. That's when the detective realizes something crucial. If the receipts can rewrite the missing, then there must have been witnesses. People who saw fragments of the truth but were silenced by those slips of paper. The first name he finds is buried in a 1995 incident report. A truck driver claimed to see headlights near Black Hollow Mine the night the hikers vanished. His statement was dismissed because a gas receipt turned up with his name on it, signed in his handwriting, proving he was miles away at a station. But when the detective tracks him down 22 years later, the man is still alive, living in a trailer on the edge of the desert. The driver's eyes are bloodshot, his hands trembling as he lights a cigarette. He swears he saw 7 figures stumbling out of the mine that night. 6 walked upright, the 7th was carried. And behind them, a taller shadow moved like it belonged but didn't. He told police at the time. They laughed, waved the receipt in his face, and told him to stop wasting their time. He kept quiet ever since. But his voice cracks when he whispers, "That paper wasn't mine. I never signed it. I never even stopped at that station." The detective takes the man's trembling hands and studies his eyes. This isn't a hoax. This is fear that's lingered for decades, and he's not the only one. Old case files reveal a maid who worked at a roadside motel. Along the corridor in 1996, she told her supervisor she saw a group of young hikers, muddy, pale, frightened, checking into a room after midnight. The next day she was fired. An envelope with cash appeared in her locker. And a week later, a receipt surfaced proving she had been hundreds of miles away, buying groceries at a store she had never stepped foot in. When the detective finds her now, she's frail, gray-haired, her voice fragile, but her memory burns sharp. "They were alive," she whispers. "I saw them. They were alive." Her eyes fill with tears, and someone made me forget. Not in my head, in everyone else's. That slip of paper erased me. More witnesses surface piece by piece. A deputy who once pulled over a dark SUV with a broken plate light, children sleeping in the back seat. He remembered the woman in the passenger seat, eyes wide, lips pressed tight as if she wanted to scream but couldn't. He waved them on. The next day, a receipt appeared in his mailbox, signed in his name, placing him in another county at that exact time. He resigned weeks later, guilt eating him alive. Each testimony matches the others. Glimpses of the missing, still alive, still moving, but shadowed by a man in a cap, silent, watchful, rewriting their lives with paper and ink. The detective gathers them in his files. Truck drivers, maids, deputies, waitresses. They are a chorus of voices buried under the weight of forged proof, their lives rerouted, their truths smothered. And as he listens, one phrase echoes again and again: they were alive. The realization is unbearable. The hikers may not have died in 1995. They may have been erased, and the receipts are not random artifacts. They are weapons, tools of silence, proof that bends reality until the truth fractures. The detective's partner warns him they're getting too close. She keeps the envelope with her forged signature locked in her desk, but it feels like a ticking clock. Each day that passes without explanation, she grows more nervous. If they wrote me in, she says, they can write me out. And then, one evening, it happens. The detective drives home, exhausted. His apartment door is unlocked. Inside, his files are gone. Every photograph, every receipt, every testimony stripped from the walls. Only one thing remains on his kitchen table: an envelope. He opens it with shaking hands. Inside is a motel registration slip dated 2 nights ago. At the bottom, a name, his partner's, the handwriting is hers. And beside it, in smaller script, another note: witness removed, panic surges. He calls her phone, no answer. He drives to her apartment. The door is ajar, the lights on. Inside, the rooms are eerily tidy, as if staged. A half-drunk cup of coffee sits on the counter, still warm. But she is gone. On her desk lies another slip of paper. This one is older, yellowed, folded. He opens it carefully. It's a diner receipt from June 1995. The name signed at the bottom, Samantha Reed. One of the hikers, and scrawled in pen across the top: I saw them too. The detective feels the air thicken, heavy, oppressive. The walls seem to lean closer. He isn't alone here. Somewhere in the quiet of the apartment, he feels the presence, watching, waiting, writing. He bolts, heart hammering, files gone, partner gone, clutching the receipt like a lifeline. He drives the corridor again, headlights slicing into the dark. Every mile feels endless, every shadow holds a face. He knows now that witnesses don't vanish because they're liars. They vanish because they're truth-tellers. And he knows what comes next. Because when he pulls into the next motel lot, another envelope is waiting on his windshield. He tears it open under the flicker of a broken neon sign. Inside is a single receipt, fresh ink glistening. It isn't signed by a hiker, it isn't signed by a witness, it's signed by him. And the date reads tonight. You sit at your desk staring at the receipt with your own name on it. The date reads tonight. The ink is still fresh. The loops and lines of the signature flawless. It is your handwriting, yet you never wrote it. The implication is suffocating. Someone out there doesn't just forge names. They forge lives. They decide what's true and what's forgotten. And whoever they are, they call themselves something more than a witness, more than a hunter. They are the author. The detective feels the walls pressing closer, every shadow in his apartment heavy with intent. He knows he can't stay here. The author already knows where he lives. He drives through the night, the corridor stretching before him, headlights reflecting off signs that point toward abandoned towns and motels long since swallowed by weeds. Every mile feels scripted, as if he's following a story someone else already wrote. At a diner that hasn't seen customers in years, he stops. The neon sign buzzes faintly, one letter still clinging to life. Inside, the booths are cracked, menus yellowed, but on the counter sits a single object, a notebook. Leather-bound, edges frayed, thick with pages. He flips it open and his blood runs cold. Inside are receipts, not glued, not taped, but hand-drawn. Line for line, detail for detail, recreated in perfect accuracy. Hundreds of them. Each page carries a name, a date, a place. Some he knows: Holloway, Reed, Wilson. Others he doesn't. Families, couples, lone travelers. The handwriting shifts from page to page, mimicking different hands, but always with one thing in common: the author's perfection. And on the final page, a name he never expected. His own. The handwriting matches his receipts, his signature copied so precisely that even he couldn't tell the difference. Beneath it, a line scrawled in darker ink: stories don't exist without an author. The air grows colder. He feels it, the presence again. He spins, hand hovering near his weapon. The diner door creaks open, though no one pushes it. A gust of wind carries paper across the floor, receipts tumbling like leaves, and then a voice, calm, flat, familiar. "You've been reading my work." A figure steps from the shadows, tall, thin, shoulders slouched beneath a baseball cap. His face remains half hidden, but his eyes glint faintly under the flickering neon. He doesn't move quickly, doesn't threaten, but his presence fills the room like gravity. The detective steadies his voice. "Who are you?" The man tilts his head. "You already know. I write, you follow. That's how this works." He gestures at the notebook. "Proof of presence. Proof of absence. I decide which story is told. Why them?" The detective demands. "Why the hikers? Why the families?" The man smiles faintly. "Because they were easy to erase. No one questions paper. A slip says you were somewhere else and the world believes. Even you, detective, you started doubting yourself when you saw your name." The detective's grip tightens on the notebook. "You can't erase everyone. Someone always remembers." The author's eyes narrow. Memory fades. "Paper endures. Tell me, what will people believe, your word or this?" He pulls a slip from his pocket, drops it on the counter. It's a diner receipt dated tomorrow. The detective leans closer. It carries his partner's name, but she's already missing. "You're lying," he spits. The author shrugs. Or maybe I'm writing ahead. The detective lunges forward, but the man slips back into the shadows, moving with eerie calm. By the time the detective bursts out into the night, the lot is empty. Only the notebook remains. He clutches it to his chest, knowing it's evidence, knowing it's dangerous. Because if the author wanted him to have it, then it's bait. Days blur together. He pores over the notebook, each page a story that never should have existed. He sees names of people who vanished decades apart but always along the corridor, always tied to the receipts. And one detail chills him most. The handwriting shifts, yes, but certain flourishes repeat. It's not just one author. It's many, a system, a network. People passing the pen from one hand to the next. That night, the detective wakes to a knock at his door. Sharp, deliberate. He freezes, weapon in hand, heart pounding. When he peers through the peephole, he sees no one. But when he opens the door, a single envelope waits. Inside is a photograph. Grainy, black and white. It shows him asleep at his desk, the author's notebook spread before him. The photo was taken just hours ago. He isn't safe anywhere. Determined, he drives the corridor again, chasing leads into towns half swallowed by dust. At one motel ruin, he pries open a drawer and finds a stack of blank receipts untouched, waiting. At another, he finds carvings in the wall. He writes us out. Each discovery presses the truth deeper. The author doesn't kill people outright. He erases them, removing them from memory, replacing their presence with paper trails until even their families doubt what's real. And if you doubt enough, you stop looking. The detective's obsession consumes him. He spreads the notebook pages across his wall, mapping disappearances, witness removals, every false trail. Strings connect dates and towns until the web covers the room. At the center is a single name written over and over, the author. His partner's voice haunts him in memory. If they wrote me in, they can write me out. He stares at her receipt, the one dated 2 nights ago. He wonders if she's alive, hidden, trapped in the author's story, or if the receipt is all that remains. Then late one night he gets a call. The same flat voice, calm and steady. "Stop chasing the story, or I'll stop writing you." He grips the phone tight, rage surging. "Where are the hikers? Where's my partner?" A pause. Then the faintest chuckle. "In the margins." The line goes dead, and that's when he realizes something worse than death has happened to the missing. They've been turned into drafts, unfinished stories trapped between presence and absence. Neither alive nor dead. Just names on paper, shuffled where the author pleases. The detective knows he must find the source, the hand behind the pen. But the corridor grows stranger. Each night he drives it, the same car follows. Each motel he stops at, another envelope waits. Every new receipt pushes him closer, but also deeper into the author's web. And one evening he returns to his apartment to find the notebook gone. His wall is bare. Every page, every receipt, every map erased. On the table lies one new slip. The paper is crisp, the ink wet. He picks it up, his blood freezing. It's a motel registration card. The date reads tonight. The room number is 12, and the name signed at the bottom is his. You stand outside an abandoned motel on the corridor. the wind carrying dust across cracked asphalt. The neon sign hasn't lit in years, but its outline glows faintly under the moonlight, like a memory refusing to die. The slip of paper in your hand trembles against your grip. The date is tonight, the room is 12, and the name scrawled at the bottom is yours. You've followed receipts for months, tracked whispers across decades, listened to voices too terrified to speak above a whisper, and now the author has written you into his story. Room 12 waits like a mouth ready to swallow you whole. The hallway smells of mildew and rust. Doors hang on broken hinges. Wallpaper curls away in sheets. Every step you take echoes too loudly, as though someone is matching your pace just out of sight. When you reach the door marked 12, the knob is cold, slick, almost oily. You push it open. Inside, the room is frozen in time. A bed with stained sheets. A broken dresser. The faint odor of cigarettes and something sharper. Gasoline, maybe. On the wall above the headboard, words are carved deep into plaster. We stayed here. We didn't leave. Your breath catches. You've seen these words before in reports, in testimonies whispered by witnesses. Families that vanished in this very room tried to leave proof of their existence. Now the words face you directly, carved with desperate hands, cutting deeper than any receipt ever could. On the nightstand lies an envelope. You open it carefully, your pulse racing. Inside is a Polaroid photograph, grainy but unmistakable. It shows you. Not in the present, but earlier that same evening, driving toward the motel, your face lit by headlights. Someone was watching. Someone is always watching. Behind you, the door clicks shut. The air grows heavier. The shadows in the corners thicken until they feel almost solid. You hear it then, the faint rustle of paper, not from your hands but from the floor beneath the bed. You crouch, lift the edge of the stained sheet and see slips scattered across the dust. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Gas receipts, motel registrations, diner tabs. Each with names, each with dates, each signed in handwriting that shouldn't exist. And at the center of the pile lies one new slip, cleaner, brighter than the rest. It bears the date of tomorrow, and your name signed once again. Your chest tightens. This isn't just evidence, it's prophecy. The author isn't documenting the past, he's writing the future. The sound of footsteps pulls your eyes to the door. Slow, deliberate. You grip the slip tight, forcing yourself to breathe steady. The knob turns. The door creaks open. A man steps inside, tall, thin, a baseball cap shadowing his face. His movements are calm, precise, almost rehearsed. He closes the door behind him without looking at you. The room feels smaller with him in it, the shadows pulling tighter. You came, he says, voice flat, unhurried. Most people run. You steady your voice. You wrote me in. He tilts his head. I write everyone in eventually. Some people just take longer to reach their page. He gestures at the slips on the floor. Proof of presence. Proof of absence. You see the pattern now. Where are they? You demand. The hikers. My partner. The families. Where did you put them? The man smiles faintly, though his eyes stay cold. Not put. Not taken. Written out. The world believes the paper, not the flesh. A receipt says you were elsewhere, and the world forgets you here. That is all it takes. Belief. You clench your fists. People don't vanish because you say so. He steps closer, his presence suffocating. Don't they? Think of the hikers. Think of the witnesses. You've spoken to people who swore they saw them alive. Yet what did the world believe? Paper. Paper is forever. He crouches, scoops up a handful of slips, lets them flutter through his fingers. Names fade. Families give up. But the receipts remain. That's why I am the author. I decide who is remembered and who is erased. Your pulse hammers. Every instinct screams to act, to fight, but the room itself feels complicit. The carved words on the wall, the slips at your feet, the Polaroid in your hand, they all whisper the same message. You don't control this story. But then, something unexpected happens. From the bathroom, a sound, soft, hesitant, the shuffle of bare feet. The man freezes, eyes narrowing. Not now, he mutters, but it's too late. A figure emerges. A young woman, her hair long and tangled, her eyes wide with fear. She looks at you, then at the man, then back at you again. Her lips tremble. Help me, she whispers. It's Samantha Reed, one of the hikers. Your breath catches. She's older now, but her face is unmistakable. The same girl from the photographs, from the journal, from the nightmares of her parents. She's alive. The man in the cap's voice sharpens. Back inside. Samantha shakes her head, her gaze locked on you. He keeps us here, she says, voice cracking. He writes us into the rooms. We can't leave because the paper says we never did. The author moves quickly, his hand gripping her arm. She winces but doesn't cry out. You rise, fury boiling, but his eyes pin you in place, cold, steady, certain. You see? He says softly. You're not chasing a killer. You're chasing a pen, and soon enough you'll be written in too. Room 12 will hold your name like it held theirs. He pulls Samantha toward the bathroom, shadows swallowing them both. The door slams shut. You rush forward, pound on the door, shout her name. Silence answers. When you force it open, the bathroom is empty. No window, no exit. Just peeling wallpaper and the faint smell of gasoline. On the cracked tile floor lies a single receipt. The ink is smeared, but the message is clear. You saw her. Now you won't. Your heart pounds. The room tilts. The carved words on the wall seem to pulse in the dim light. We stayed here. We didn't leave. And in that moment, you understand the cliff of reality you're standing on. If the author can erase Samantha after you've seen her with your own eyes, then he can erase anyone, even you. The lamp flickers. Paper rustles. And from somewhere in the dark, the calm voice whispers again. Your story ends here. You can't shake the image of her face. Samantha Reed, alive, whispering for help before the author pulled her into shadows that should not have existed. You saw her, felt her presence, heard the crack in her voice, and then she was gone, erased by the same hand that has been rewriting lives for decades. The carved words on the motel wall still echo inside you. We stayed here. We didn't leave. The receipt in your pocket feels heavier than paper should. It's not just proof. It's a threat. You saw her. Now you won't. Each letter drips with intent, a promise that even memory can be unmade. And you wonder how much longer your own memory will matter. The detective doesn't go home. Home doesn't exist anymore. The corridor is home now. The empty motels, the shuttered diners, the endless stretch of road where reality bleeds. He drives through the night, headlights illuminating mile markers like gravestones. At dawn, he pulls into a rest stop, exhaustion pressing behind his eyes. He slumps against the steering wheel and dreams. In the dream, paper rains from the sky. Receipts flutter in every direction, each one bearing a name he knows. Samantha, Marcus, Denise, his partner, his own. The slips cover the ground until the world is nothing but paper, the ink bleeding into rivers of black. A shadow moves among them, tall and thin, a cap pulled low. The author kneels, plucks a slip from the flood, and writes a new name with deliberate strokes. The detectives. He wakes with a gasp, sweat cold on his skin. When he looks up, an envelope is tucked under his windshield wiper. Hands shaking, he tears it open. Inside is not a receipt this time, but a single page torn from the author's leather notebook. The ink is bold, fresh, his own name written across the top in block letters. Below it, the words, Room 12 was your beginning. The mine will be your end. His pulse spikes. Black Hollow Mine, the place where the hikers first vanished. The place where it all began. He drives without stopping, gravel spitting under his tires as the mountains rise again. The mine sits ahead, its entrance sagging under collapsed beams. He parks at the edge, grabs his flashlight, and steps inside. The air is damp, heavy, reeking of rust and earth. Every drip of water echoes like footsteps. Deeper he goes, the beam catching scrawls on the walls. Words carved into stone by desperate hands. Help us. He's here. We didn't leave. Each carving sends a chill down your spine. These weren't just stories told by witnesses. These were messages left by the vanished, scratched into the earth itself, ignored for decades. Then he finds it. A chamber. In the center, a wooden table warped by age. Stacks of receipts are pinned to it with rusty nails. Gas slips, diner tabs, motel cards, all aged differently, some fresh, some crumbling. Each bears a name. Each is signed. And above them, pinned like a crown jewel, is a fresh receipt with his name on it. The date. Tonight. The detective's breath comes in shallow gasps. He steps closer, hands trembling. He hears it then, the calm voice echoing in the chamber, steady as ever. You've reached the last page, the flashlight flickers. Shadows stretch, and from the far side of the chamber the author emerges, cap low, face calm, eyes steady. His presence is suffocating, but his tone remains patient, almost tender. You wanted answers, he says. Here they are. I write, you follow. That's how the story works. Where are they? Your voice cracks. The hikers. My partner, Samantha. The author gestures at the table. They're here. Not in flesh, in story. Paper holds them better than memory ever could. Flesh decays. Memory fades, but ink? Ink is forever. You don't get to decide who lives and who doesn't, you spit. The faintest smile curves his lips. I already did. You've read my work. You've lived it. Every mile you've driven, every slip you found, it was all written long before you arrived. Even this moment. The detective grips the notebook page tighter. Why me? Why bring me this far? The author tilts his head. Because every story needs a reader. Without you, the receipts are just scraps. With you, they become truth. You spread them. You keep them alive. You think you've been chasing me, but I've been writing you. The words settle heavy in the chamber, pressing against the stone. He steps closer, his voice almost a whisper. And now, detective, you face the choice. Become a page or become the pen. Your mind reels. He's not offering escape. He's offering initiation. To join the system. To become another author. To write names into existence and erase them with paper and ink. The silence stretches unbearable. Then a sound behind him, soft, fragile. You look past his shoulder and see movement. Samantha again. Alive. Her face pale, eyes wide, trembling. She holds a scrap of paper in her hand. She shakes her head, mouthing the words, "Don't." The author doesn't notice. His eyes are locked on you, calm, steady, certain. He pulls a fresh slip from his pocket, lays it gently on the table. The ink glistens under your flashlight. It bears your name. The date tonight. The signature line blank, he extends a pen. Finish it, he says softly. Write yourself in, or be erased. Your hand trembles as you stare at the slip. Behind him, Samantha's lips tremble with silent urgency. You feel the weight of decades pressing on your chest. The hikers, the families, the witnesses, your partner. Every one of them silenced by paper. Every one of them waiting for someone stubborn enough to resist. The author leans closer, his voice a whisper now. Every story needs an ending. Will you give me yours? And then from the shadows of the chamber, another sound. A second set of footsteps, slow, deliberate, the scrape of boots on stone. The detective spins, light catching a figure emerging from the tunnel. Another man, cap pulled low. The same calm face, the same presence. Another author. Your heart freezes. Because if there's more than one, then the story isn't just written, it's endless. You stand between two figures in caps, their faces half erased by shadow. Their voices calm and patient, like teachers waiting for a pupil to choose. The table before you is a graveyard of paper. Receipts nailed into warped wood. Names pressed into ink until the ink became truth. Samantha hovers at the edge of your light, lips forming a single word you can't hear. The second man's arrival rewrites the room without a sound. It was never one hand, never one pen. The corridor was a printing press. The motels were binding glue. People went in as flesh and came out as chapters you were meant to read and accept. You feel the pen's weight in your palm, the way you felt the mind's darkness in your lungs. If you sign, you join the system that swallowed the hikers, the witnesses, your partner. An author added to the authorless machine. If you refuse, the blank line becomes a blade. The page turns without you. Behind the men, the shaft exhales cold air that smells like rust and wet paper, and you remember every carving along the tunnels. We stayed here. We didn't leave. The carvings were the only pages they owned. Samantha shakes her head harder now, eyes filling, a tremor running through the light on her face. You try to speak her name and the chamber steals the sound. Somewhere above, wind drags through a broken timber like a finger across a spine. One of the men tilts his head, as if listening to a cue only he can hear. Every story needs an ending, he says, but the author decides which one the world believes. Your hand lowers. The pen touches paper, you stop. Because you notice what they didn't. A smear on the fresh receipt where your name should go. A tiny fingerprint left by someone with dust and ash on her hands. Samantha's. She has already written something here, something small enough to be overlooked, stubborn enough to survive. You angle the beam. The smear resolves into a letter. Not your initial. Not his, hers. The second man reaches out. The first lifts the table's edge. Receipts flutter like startled birds. Your beam skitters across ink and faces and dates. You move without deciding. Forward, sideways, nowhere at all. And the chamber folds around your choice like a book snapping shut. The pen falls. The page turns. Darkness closes, and the story does not say what you did. State secret or a ritual of erasure written in ink. Were the hikers alive in the margins, or did the corridor forge their afterlives on paper? Tell us your theory in the comments. Some stories were never meant to stay buried. Don't let them vanish. Keep them alive with us.